Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. This is then a 2025 podcast coming to you at the first of the year here with guests, a realtor, a real estate agent. I don't know what you guys want to be called these days with everything changing up, but Misty Price, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, no, I've known you. Well, Misty and I have known each other for a while, and this is our first time sitting down in a podcast setting. And so I think it's interesting that I know several things about you. I don't know all of your background in getting into real estate. So maybe it'd be fun to start there as we then tackle where we've been in real estate and where we're going and all the things here. But yeah, so what got you into real estate?
Well, my children were at a point in their lives where they were high school and older.
Okay.
My degree is actually in early childhood education.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so I actually did that for many years. I'm certified Montessori teacher.
Okay.
So I've worked with all ages of children. I've even been in management positions of different schools and things like that. And it worked well while I was raising my kids.
Okay.
Because I could be close to them.
Yeah.
So it just became a point where I was ready for something more challenging.
Okay.
My children were almost grown, and so I felt like this was something I could do.
Yeah.
And it just kind of brings out maybe some of the things I'm good at.
Yeah.
Like negotiating and communication. With early childhood, you have to be a good communicator. And so I think that's helped me and to understand people too.
I'm having a good laugh as I believe that people, I'm not a psychologist, but I believe that people default to like lower level emotional and cognitive selves when they are going through high stress situations. So sometimes we do like, hey, well, and even in the lack of experience that people deal with, right? Of like, hey, this is completely new to them. You got to kind of like tell me. And I've done this to when I'm on the opposite side of the desk, like with my financial advisor, sometimes like, talk to me like I'm a fifth grader. Like, just talk to me like I'm a fifth grader, and then let's go from there. So I'm sure your education background has been priceless.
If you can understand and communicate with a toddler, you can definitely understand and communicate with an adult.
Stressed out buyer.
It's
just got their home inspection back.
Bad things that pop up with real estate because we all know things pop up.
Yeah.
And so keeping my cool, it's helpful to my clients for sure.
I love that. And you've been in you've worn a lot of different hats as a realtor as well. So talk me through some of that.
So just in general, as far as...
Yeah, so you were in new build, right?
Oh,
new
yes.
build,
Yeah.
and then just regular existing.
I did love being in the new build community. I feel like that experience and education was invaluable to me in my career.
Yeah.
It helped me to see a different side of things. And so having that new build experience was really great. And then also just the resale community as well, and working with buyers and sellers now. It's been wonderful. I can still go back to the new build stuff if I need to, as far as helping clients if they do want to build a home. Just having that experience has really been helpful.
Yeah. Should we play a fun? Let's. And we'll tangent all over the place here. Let's play a quick game, right?
Okay.
What are the three? We're gonna do two things: 3 best things about new builds and 3 worst things about new builds.
Well, I will start with the best because once you build your own home, and it's just brand new, and you get to pick everything in it. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
it really is. Walking into a brand new home with all the things that you picked out. A lot of times you kind of have to, with resale, things aren't always exactly perfect with what you would pick.
Yeah.
And so new builds, it kind of gives you that. So that's definitely one of the best things.
Customization. Yep.
Customization. Another thing is just floor plan.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have I've helped people buy a home, a resale home, and it's, maybe 90% of it, the floor plan is great, but there's like 10% that's just not quite right.
Yeah.
And so that can be a little tricky.
Can I add to that? Is like a lot of the modernization of that. Because like we talk about, there's things like, especially educating buyers, there's things you can change about a house. Like don't get upset about the carpet because that can be relatively easily changed.
Absolutely.
Right. And I just say relatively insensitive. Sure, it's cost, but floor plan can be a tough thing to change.
Yes.
And even then, is it going to flow like it was new or normal, or is it always going to feel like an afterthought?
Exactly.
Like it's nothing like walking through a home where and you're not an experienced builder, but this happened later.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, so sometimes it just can't be modified
Yeah.
to the way you want. Although, usually we can find something.
Sure. There's always some creativity on existing. So third, what would be your third point on the best thing about new build?
I would say the location. I mean, you can be pretty, you can do that with resale too, but just finding that perfect lot and the placement on the lot and how it all works and watching it be built from the ground up, it's just really exciting.
Definitely. We had done a new build back in 2012 and had told our builder, keep all the rocks, like keep all the big rocks and everything. And it was just super, super cool that we then landscaped our entire yard with all the rocks that just came from the foundation, like dig out. So it's just kind of cool, right? That's just like your little mark on the world.
It's your mark on the world. Yep.
Yep.
All new. Everything's new. It's just wonderful. So those are the pros, I would say.
Yep. Okay, let's get out of the honeymoon phase. What are the 3 cons?
Within reason. I mean, I feel like buyers need to understand that homes are going to settle. And so a brand new home is going to settle. It's good to have an agent that's going to make sure that you're covered with warranties and things like that.
Yep.
You should do a 1-year walkthrough and a 2-year walkthrough because tiles might crack. You might have certain things that kind of settle in the home. Doesn't mean your home is falling apart or that it wasn't built correctly. It just means that is a natural thing with building a home, especially the time of year.
Yep. Love it. So settling. Okay. A number 2 thing.
Number 2 thing. I mean, a floor plan you see on paper may not end up being the exact floor plan in person. This is a big one.
Yeah.
Something that, you look at a floor plan on paper and you think, oh, this is just perfect.
Yeah.
And then you get into the home and maybe you realize, ooh, that carpet going out of the sliding glass door and the living room being too small. And, we're in a place with snow and mud and kids coming in and out. You don't want carpet right by your sliding glass door. Just certain things like that you but floor plan is a big one.
Yeah.
It might look fine on paper, but not in person.
I think it is so important to have a good representative to help talk you through those things. And then as far as, so I'll tell you a quick story, is with the home that we had built had an oversized half bath, right? So it was, and when I say oversized, it was probably like, maybe 18 inches, maybe 24 inches wider than your normal half bath. And so, everyone knows the typical half bath, especially here in Flagstaff, Arizona, you got your little pedestal sink, your mirror, and then typically right in line with that is your toilet, right?
Right.
And so when we walk into this, and at first, like when I was, I'd walk in all the time. I know it's different, or builders have different rules around that stuff and for safety and everything, but we'd walk it all the time. And I was seeing like I'm not a builder, but I was seeing like the drain for the toilet was like off centered. And I was kind of like, I don't know. I've never put a toilet on like at that point. I have put a lot on now, but gets all built up and the toilet's off centered. And this particular builder did this a lot. And they thought it sounded nice for like a cabinet. So later on, I asked their representative. The representative says, I think that looks wrong. So there was some problems in their communication. But we finally talked to the builder, and the builder's like, no, it's like, it's oversized, so you can put a cabinet back there. I was like, I'm planning to have boys. Like, that's considered downrange. Like, we don't want to put anything next to the toilet. But, because that was a massive space. So anyway, they actually ended up changing it. But it was just one of those things where they did point out the plans to me. And they said, look, like on this small, like probably 4 millimeter toilet on the, or maybe bigger, I don't know, like 2 centimeter toilet on these plans, you can see that is offset. And I was like, I agree with you, but still, like, I think this is unique. I would hope that someone kind of point this out. Cause like, if I just took a quick scan, it's like toilets in a bathroom. Great.
Exactly. So it's good to have some of that knowledge or work with somebody that does.
Yep.
And that takes me to the third one. As you're speaking, I'm sitting here thinking some of these things that happen if you don't know better, like light, electrical. You wouldn't think, but for me, I wouldn't say I'm super OCD, but I do like things to line up.
Yep.
And so, for instance, dining room light. You want it to be over where your table is going to be, and you want it to be centered. If that dining room light is off, it is going to annoy you. If you have to put your table too close to the door and there's no way to walk around it, those are little things, but when you live in a home, they can really be annoying. Yeah. Just like carpet. You don't want carpet by your sliding glass door.
And I think that's an excellent last point to end on, because I think it really comes down to, don't make assumptions that the builders got this perfect or perfect to you.
Exactly.
Right. And when you really can then think through, you really just have to spend time and have ideally your own expert, right? To know, like, a lot of these folks, like they could have a draftsman like throwing the outlets in on the room, and it's not like a designer or someone that knows, like, hey, like the draftsman put them right near the window and the bed's going to be on the opposite side, and you don't want it in the middle of the wall because that's where the headboard is, that kind of stuff that you don't, and the bar of expectation is quite a bit higher on new build. Right. Because you paid a lot premium, whatever, and you think it should be perfect. But unless you do your own due diligence,
exactly,
it's probably not going to be.
And some things are worth paying the extra cost for.
Yeah.
You'll be thankful later, and some aren't.
Yeah.
So it's good to know those things.
I love it. Okay, I love it. So you went through the new build, and you're now Wild West everything.
Yes.
So what? And how long have you been doing real estate now here?
So I'm getting ready to start my 8th year.
That's awesome.
In real estate.
That is so, and I think everyone needs to know. Everyone, please, watching this needs to know. Like, if you know someone that used to be a lender or used to be a realtor, like, give them a hug.
Right.
Like, they'll hopefully they find their next best thing, because it's been just a brawl.
It's been
in the
hard.
last couple of years. I have folks. So I've been doing this for 16 years, and I know. So I got in at the tail end of the bubble burst, and knew nothing, so it was not a big deal. But folks that I know that survived that, and even some folks that survived the crises of the .com boom, or even savings and loan crisis, 30, 40 years, they're like, this is some of the hardest times, just because of the big shifts and where we are that they've seen in the industry, and we've seen massive attrition. We're about 30% of the loan officers, so about almost 400,000 loan officers nationally. Did I tell you this stat?
No.
I love this stat. I've told everybody. There's 395,000 loan officers back in 2022 nationally, and licenses renewed this year were 93,000.
Wow. That says a lot.
Yeah. So the fact that you are 8 and going is amazing. So kudos.
Have hung on there. I love what I do. I love my clients. I love who I work with. This is definitely the right career for me.
Yeah.
And I love the complexity of it sometimes, the challenges that come, even though it does stress me out sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
But I do love it. Keeps me on my toes.
Definitely. Well, let's have fun with it here. So what do you love most about it?
This is going to sound really just staged, but I really do love the connections and the relationships I gain with the people I work with. I feel that they can sense that I'm genuine and that I'm very real, and I'm just going to tell them like it is. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to tell them what they want to hear. I will be totally honest with them. And so those relationships that I build with people, I love it.
Yeah.
It's really fun. And to help them to walk into their new home, or, move on to another place to start a new life, if I'm helping them sell a home. So those things are really fun.
Yeah. And what we're saying is it's so interesting that this just isn't an area where folks have a lot of experience, and as much as they want to jump on, social media or the internet or ChatGPT or whatever, there's so many steps. There's so much to it that it's really, I'd agree with you. It's just extremely rewarding when you can take someone that this isn't a journey that most people could do on their own or much less than successfully. I don't mean that in like a rude way. It's just like, yeah, sure, you can absolutely do it. If you want to take on a second job, read a couple books, and then you're still going to, like, just like if I were to build a house, I'm not a house builder, and I'm going to do the best I can, spend tons of time. I've done several renovations, and it's like mess things up and everything. And then it's like, and then at the end of the day, like you still realize like probably someone with, years of experience more than me would have successfully done something better, or at least save me costs or time or anything. So long story short is you help these people through this journey that usually they couldn't really come to that same end result, whether it's getting that little extra credit to, so they can do the flooring now versus wait 5 years for the budget, or, get into that neighborhood that they didn't think they could get into. It is extremely, extremely rewarding because you're changing, it sounds super cliche, but you're changing lives, right? It's super cool.
Right. And a lot of people are like, I can do this on my own. It's not a big deal. And, there's times where it goes well for them.
Yeah.
But what about when it doesn't?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, too, is when challenges pop up, I can kind of, calm people down. I usually have multiple options for them. So if they were dealing with some of these things on their own, they're not going to know these options of what they have to be able to kind of get through things, because very rarely do these transactions go through without something popping up.
Yeah.
There's something that's going to pop up. And so if I can go to my clients and I can say, hey, here's where we're at. These are your 2-3 options. Here's what it looks like on each one. What do you want to do? And how can I help you? And
I think, and the interesting thing about it too in real estate, and another thing that when I was talking with a client that this always stuck with me, is they're like, hey, in my world, like, they, in your typical world that they have their salary, they can tell me what they're budgeting this next year. They know when their next raise is, they know what their next raise schedule is for the next year or two. And money is just a very controlled or kind of more predictable thing for them. And then they step into this real estate transaction. They're like, oh wait, we can offer like up or down by like 10 grand, or we can get a credit of 20,000. Like it just doesn't compute for a lot of people of like, oh, if we negotiated the roof to get done versus me having to save for that, because I would have to save for, in the normal human budget for like a long time and sacrifice other things or not get that new car or go on that vacation. But just because you are going to ask for it and we get it, then all of a sudden, like I have a new roof. I went to Hawaii and I'm budgeting for the, the new car. Like, not that's all about things, but yeah, it's exciting. Isn't it interesting to be able to do those things? Yeah. And even we've done a lot of deals together, and I've negotiated a lot of concessions on behalf of my buyers that have helped them, in the transaction. Yeah. But yeah, these are things that people don't really know about on their own. They do need like a professional to help them through this. And we also aren't, most people, my dad was like the worst haggler. Like it was uncomfortable haggling. Like we had like the dishwasher repairman that he's haggling with in our kitchen. I'm like, this is not, no. But oftentimes people like, I think there's this societal thing like in our Western culture too of like, oh, I don't want to offend this. I've actually had literally 2 conversations in just today of talking with people working to get offers and feeling like I don't want to offend a seller. And well, there's balance. I'm not a real estate agent, so you can tell me more about that. But it's like, well, you want to start off on a good foot. It's also negotiation. Right. And, there's a key to negotiating correctly. If you do go in and you're, just so far apart from the value of what that home's worth, you might offend the seller. Yeah. But if you have a good idea of what the home is worth, but you're still trying to help your buyers or sellers, whichever you're, kind of find that middle ground, both people are going to be happy. And there usually is a middle ground where both sides are happy, the transaction can go through, and everybody's happy, and it just works out. And I love that you said that. Like I was talking with a good friend of mine that when I was like, hey, is like dual agency seems like impossible. And they said, well, why? And I know there's more opinions on that, so not to go into that rabbit hole. But it's also a matter, they said, well, how can everybody win? I was like, okay. I kind of now can see that better. And how can everybody win? Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, everyone has a need, and how can we come together
Right.
mutually and as fairly as possible meet those needs? And I think no, so kind of, and the hard part about one big aspect that I think also throws a lot of people off that's abnormal is because the pace and the needs and of those buyers and sellers and the abilities then that market is going to bear changes pretty rapidly. And I think I don't know, I'm going to let you tell me. I think we're already seeing some change. So let's is just kind of update to our, those listening. Here we are about mid-February, and gonna get our first like real snow here pretty quick here. So it probably is already hit by the time you're watching this. But what is your advice to buyers right now? What's changed? Especially a lot of them, they're only information unless they're working with a great agent. And most of the time they're talking to friends first, and friends that maybe did this a year ago or maybe even a couple months ago, or, got one of those like fancy 3% rates. And it's like, everything's kind of different, even from a couple months ago. And I don't know, what do you feel has changed?
Well, advice for buyers,
Yeah.
I would say don't listen to all the people that aren't professionals. Everyone's going to have their opinion.
Yep.
You should do this. You shouldn't do this. And your great aunt Gladys is going to have all the information for you. And it's good to kind of take a step back and do your own research and work with a professional that is in this business. I think that's a huge one, because when you have all these different voices in your mind, in your head telling you what to do, it makes it a little more complicated.
Yep.
One thing I would say, and I've been telling people this, there will be a change coming. Obviously, we can only predict. Sure. Everybody looks at all the different information and tries to predict what's going to happen. I mean, none of that is a guarantee. It really isn't. But the market up here, we see a change at this time of year, February, March, April, and the people in the Phoenix area, they start seeing the heat rise up and they want to escape. And so they like to come up here and look for homes up here, things like that. Things just get busy. Yeah. We've got the wildfires in California. It's going to push people this way. And so there's a lot of, it's coming. And so I would say the sooner, the better. And people keep wanting to wait for these rates to drop. But if you wait for the rates to drop, everybody is going to be trying to purchase homes at the same time. And are you really saving money? Because now you're probably overpaying on a home.
Well, not necessarily overpaying, but paying more than you could have.
Yeah.
Right? And what's interesting, so I just had jumped on to the Northern Arizona Association, stats and market summary. And it was super, super cool to see that that was kind of broken, like during the pandemic years and the home buying conditions of that time, or I should say 2022, or other people call them the unicorn years of real estate and different things there, to where like seasonality didn't exist in the market. It was just like gas pedal all the time. And then like, rates are even lower, like more gas pedal. It didn't matter if it was June or January, right? And so, but right now, in seeing those charts, that seasonality is back and it's really pronounced. Which, so I'm looking at, okay, like all of a sudden, like the average days on market is going down. And that's, you look at, okay, where were we a year ago? Oh, we are right where we left off. And where is it likely to go? Like continuing to go down, right? The months of inventory, same story. And the other thing that I saw that was like perfect story, like you can see right where we're taking off in that trend, to where like the cycle is just repeating because normal seasonality exists, to where also list to sell ratio, right? We hit the so folks listening that the association monitors where did the home sell compared to list price, and that hit the biggest gap, right? So the most discounts were in, December, January. The winter months, everyone's, hanging out with the holidays, not buying houses. That's seasonality. And then now we're seeing that list to sell ratio already ticking and tightening up. And it's going to be at its tightest come summertime.
Absolutely. Well, and another thing I've heard for the last few years is we're going to wait for the market to crash. It's not happening.
Yeah.
I mean, from what we can see, obviously, none of us know exactly.
Black Swan event, all bets off, but, knock on wood.
Right.
So, yeah.
But, I mean, we've seen up here in northern Arizona a gradual increase in, home value.
Yeah.
It still has increased even with what has happened over the last few years. So that says a lot about our market. I mean, it just holds its value well.
Yeah, and I think it just plays to the point where we're just talking to a lot of folks and just saying, hey, the playbook from 60 days ago is not the playbook today, right? If that home if you were thinking, hey, let's wait, that home might get some price reductions, then we come in on it, and that maybe worked like in late fall, I think. Yeah. But then all of a sudden, even in winter, it was like, oh, now we're waiting and the price was reduced, but we're competing now. And then all of a sudden now folks are just like, hey, there was 2 offers on it last Friday already. It was only on market for a week, or, it's kind of, again, this is very anecdotal and very case by case. Right. But it seems like homes that are in desirable neighborhoods and in decent condition.
And priced right.
That I am feeling that most buyers or that there's not, I shouldn't say most buyers, a significant amount of buyers are ready to make their life moves and not so much worried about the rate sensitivity right now or waiting for something else to happen. It's like, we've been around here, it's not likely to go significantly higher. We could see we're expecting some lowering here, and they just want to make things happen. So, and there's enough buyers out there that the market's already kind of moving.
It is. Yeah, I've seen that. And I feel like one of the phrases I hear from clients more often than not is woulda, shoulda, coulda. I wish I would have jumped during this time. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done this. Buyers and sellers can only make their best guesses.
Sure.
And do their research and talk to professionals and try to get help that way. But usually if you feel like you should jump and get moving on it, you should.
Well, and I would double down on that and say mostly of like, be prepared and have the conversations and do that before the flashpoint, right? Of like, oh, all of a sudden, hey, we just talked with Misty. We've been thinking about buying for the last couple of months, looking at, online property, and the house we love just came up. It's like, oh gosh, it's Friday at 4:00. Like, yes. Not sure how much we can get done
happens.
Here. It does happen. And so I think, will you and I accommodate best we can? Yes. Sure. But optimal process is like, we're not scary. Like, set things up and do your homework. Now look into this. You could change your perspective. Maybe doors open that you didn't know. Like, oh, we could even do this now, right? Or maybe it totally changes your perspective of like, thought we wanted to do that, but once we ran the numbers, talked with Misty, looked around at houses, we really want to do something completely different. So don't waste your time daydreaming when you can talk to some professionals and actually start to get some really good ideas and some pretty concrete numbers without any obligation, right?
I do feel like a lot of buyers wait to talk to a lender because they think they have to have everything figured out beforehand.
Yeah.
Before they talk to a lender, before they talk to a real estate agent, they feel like they have to have everything lined up. But that's part of what we do is we actually help them understand the path to move forward, to make their dreams happen and to make it happen. So.
And that segues me perfectly into this next piece is what's this one of my new favorite phrases right now in considering the market is we always talk about the first-time home buyer, but right now we actually have a very high influx of first-time home sellers. Have you heard this one?
I haven't heard this, but it makes sense.
Makes sense, right?
I'm excited to hear.
Yeah. And so I think that's what's really hard. Again, just the same anxieties with the process, or what do I even do here, or how do I even work this out? You have these folks that are they financially are already having a little bit of justification on saying, well, we need that extra bedroom or want to move up or get the bigger neighborhood, the bigger lot or whatever, right? And so they're already having to mentally do some gymnastics on, is this financially going to work? But they've also never sold a home before.
Right.
And the last thing you want to do is be homeless, right? And so it's like, how do we even do this? So what are maybe some tips and advice that you have for, whether it be that first-time seller or just sellers in general in this market right now?
I would say definitely talk to us, because there are different ways to protect a seller if they are selling their home and buying a home.
Yep.
You want the time frames to match up. There's certain documents that have to be filled out that we do as real estate agents to make sure that those contingencies are all in place to protect them. And so they might be afraid, and that's just kind of what our job is, to take the fear away and to help them through it and to walk them through it so they can breathe. Yeah. And think clearly and make their decisions on their next home. So putting those contingencies in place of like, hey, we want to sell our home, but until we know that this purchase of this other home that we're buying is going to go through, we need to make sure we're all lined up. Because if this one falls through, but we sell this one, we're going to be homeless, like you said. There's different things that we do to take that stress away from the sellers. Yeah. To make sure that things go smoothly. And I think it's great to, it's always hard to buy that first home, to come up with that down payment sometimes. Yep. But what is so cool is when you go to buy your second home. Yeah. Now you've got this equity that you can pull, and it gives you the freedom of being able to upgrade your home. Yeah. The different things you can do. It gives you, it's just so exciting.
It's very similar, and it's very, I always tell folks, like first-time home buyers especially, of like, this is the hardest it will ever be. And almost just like having your first kid, like that's it truly, I think for most people, like there's different levels of hard for sure. Right. I know you have several, I have several. But the first is the hardest just because all the newness. And then when you come about around the second time, you're like, oh, no. I know that word that you just said. Yes. Like I can follow the conversation and understand what you just mentioned on this contract negotiation piece or whatever. But it is typically then a different experience as well. Right. And it's very interesting. I'd also add to that to where when folks or those first time sellers need to know, like, there's so many different pieces, even though you went through that and you have a lot of those vocabulary words, we're going to talk about like, do you have to sell? Are you contingent on sale? Or are you not? Right. Do you really want to, do you want to move up so bad that you're willing to be very aggressive on your sell and maybe rent and then go buy because the money's in pocket and now you're not a contingent? Or do you, again, financially, do you have to be? And there's so much to it that, again, don't prejudge. Talk to experts. We do this for you every day. But the other thing that I was going to say about it, I think that there is, just from take it humbly from my seat in this community and economy of like, I see agent performance day in, day out. Right. And the one, and I would just say like people, if I say anything that people listen to, hopefully this is the one thing that the value of a real estate agent is no greater than when it is in a move and buy scenario.
Absolutely.
I have never seen more things screwed up. Yes. Cost and stress and life, or more things just done so well, where it's like that duck on top of the water, right? Where it's like the client just thinks this is all gliding smoothly, but underneath you're like, Missy's just like coordinating everything. It's like, you don't even know the 10 phone calls I just made to make sure this happened and coordinated for that to happen. And there's so many extra parties and timelines and so that's where I think that's where people just need to know, I get on that early and make sure you don't just go with, whoever's best friend just, decided to get their license.
Exactly.
Scares me.
It does scare me too with the amount of things that can go wrong. A lot of us agents and lenders, we have had to deal with difficult things, and that's where a lot of our education comes from, is having these things arise that we have to figure out. But now we have it in our back pockets, and we can, use that going forward. If this happens, okay, well, I've been here before. These are the ways that I figured it out, and you give that to your clients and let them choose. Yep. And so, and as well as with working with lenders, it's good to have that partnership because, you've got your title agency, your lender, your real estate agent. We all have to work together for things to go smoothly. And so it's great to have a good team to work together so that we can make sure that everything moves correctly.
And everyone being able to have conversation and work through things, like you said, versus just someone, and I've seen this happen where someone just said, yeah, I was just told I had to do this and I did it. Yep. And then it's like, well, no, actually there was, again, 3 different options that you could have been presented. And if your lender was talking to your realtor and your realtor was, if people were communicating versus just like, no, on to the next, right?
Exactly. It's a team effort for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like, no, we're getting close to time here, but one thing that I feel is really important to say too is that I think if anyone, I think so important for sellers to know as well that if we can't predict the future, we don't have a crystal ball, but I think the folks that will feel like they missed the opportunity, not that I'm trying to be alarmist with this, but the folks that could in 6 to 12 to 18 months really feel like, shoot, I should have, is going to be that move up buyer. Specifically right now, because the market is still somewhat paced to where you could get a contingent offer potentially accepted. It's not this hustle. Mm-hmm. And the first thing to go when we start to see a little speed is going to be that person with the contingency.
You're right. Yeah. Theirs will be picked behind a cash buyer or somebody without a contingency.
Yeah. And I get it. I know a lot of them are waiting. I know a lot of them had that really low mortgage payment and they're really, they love that. But it's a bottom line of if you're going to stay there, like fantastic, right? Like great. If you can move the wall, you can remodel, like fantastic. Like you will be in the cheapest scenario ever, never move. Okay. But if you are going to make a change, and that change could be anywhere in the next 3 to 5 years, because you need to optimize in its lifestyle, and people often do pick lifestyle and make those decisions, right?
Absolutely.
It's going to be far in your favor
to do now. I agree.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. And just like, I just think of like the stress and the issues that could be caused if someone's like, oh my gosh, we thought we wait till June. And even then, and again, I don't want to be alarmist to people or freak them out. Like, get on it now. Just start asking the right questions. But things could shift pretty quickly, and then all of a sudden, it's like, instead of having secured that and locked that down before the spring market gets too crazy. I mean, already it's mid-February. So the spring market's going to be. I'm thinking it's going to be hitting early.
Oh yeah,
things are going to start to pace pretty fast.
I feel it coming this year.
So you could be like, hey, we're already in, and we're making our summer plans and plan the barbecue, or like, you're just like getting denied and declined, and it hits the fall, and you're like, do we need to relist next spring? Right. It's serious, right?
It is serious.
So, yeah. Well, Missy, this has been awesome, but any other closing thoughts? What should buyers, sellers, or anyone else be thinking that's thinking about real estate right now?
I would say just to go for it. I feel like people just kind of, I just don't, I always feel bad when they come to me and they say, I wish I would have done that.
Yeah.
Just start talking to people. Don't be afraid.
Yep.
To ask the questions like you said. Don't be afraid. Like, that is the most important thing you can do.
Yep. And it is that leap of faith, but like you said, with talking to experts, evaluating this, we're not saying like jump blindly, right? To be very calculated. And everything we're talking about in these time frames and the advice to buyers and sellers, I mean, it's like we were talking earlier. You're like, we take it for granted that we're in this day in, day out, and we're forming these opinions because of what we're seeing and what we've seen people experience.
Right.
And it's just a matter of like, taking some courage, taking like some ownership in your life to make some good things happen and build some equity, as long as you're not moving in a year or two, right? As long as you have some staying power,
right?
Yeah, you're going to make some good decisions.
It's worth it to do something.
Awesome.
Get that next house.
All right, guys, we'll give Missy a call. Thank you so much, Missy, for being on.
Thank you so much.
Yep, it's going to be a good year.